1937 11:10 p.m. Harlem. The band at the Lafayette Theater Lounge was halfway through a hot swing number when the sound cut through everything, louder than the horns, louder than the room. An open hand slap across Bumpy Johnson's face. For one breath, Harlem forgot how to move. Bumpy wasn't the older, calmer legend yet. In 1937 he was already feared, already connected, already climbing, but still close enough to the street that disrespect could spread like infection if you didn't burn it out fast. The man who slapped him stood there grinning like he'd just rewritten the rules. Eddie Knuckles Caruso. A small-time gangster with big-time hunger, imported from downtown circles that believed Harlem was a place you could tax, embarrass, and walk away from. Eddie rolled his shoulders like he'd just won a fight. "That's for making me wait," he said, loud enough for the room to hear. "Harlem ain't special, Johnson. It just, next." Nobody laughed. Not even Eddie's own men. Because Bumpy didn't reach for a gun. He didn't lunge. He didn't shout. He slowly touched the corner of his mouth, checked the tiny smear of blood on his thumb, and looked at his watch. 11:12 p.m. Bumpy lifted his eyes to Eddie, calm enough to be terrifying. "You just bought yourself 50 minutes, Bumpy said. Eddie blinked. 50 minutes for what? Bumpy's voice dropped lower, like a prayer. "To realize you should have killed me." Then Bumpy turned, walked through the crowd, and left the lounge without running, without even looking back. Eddie laughed, trying to keep the room under his control. "See," Eddie said, spreading his hands. "That's your Harlem King?" But Harlem didn't react the way he wanted. Because everybody in that room understood the part Eddie didn't. Bumpy Johnson didn't walk away because he was scared. He walked away because he was starting a clock. And when Bumpy started a clock, the whole neighborhood moved with it. The question wasn't whether Eddie Caruso would pay. The question was how many blocks of Harlem would smell like smoke when the 50 minutes ran out. People who didn't live in Harlem thought a slap was just a slap. In 1937, a slap was a headline written on your face. It told every hustler, every numbers runner, every hungry young gunman watching from the shadows, Bumpy Johnson can be touched. And once people believe that, your power doesn't fade slowly. It collapses fast. That's why Eddie picked a slap instead of a bullet. A bullet makes a martyr. A slap makes a joke. Eddie Knuckles Caruso had been floating around the edges of Harlem for weeks, showing up in places he didn't belong, flashing money like it was permission. He wasn't a boss. He was a messenger with ambition, sent by men downtown who wanted Harlem's numbers action without paying Harlem's price. And Eddie had a plan. Embarrass Bumpy publicly, then offer peace privately. Classic play. Humiliate the man, then sell him away to regain dignity, on your terms. But Harlem wasn't a neighborhood you could manage with downtown tricks, because Harlem ran on something stronger than fear. It ran on memory. Every landlord, bartender, doorman, shoeshine boy, and church lady remembered who helped when the rent was late. Who made a call when the police got too comfortable. Who kept certain predators off certain corners. Bumpy didn't just have muscle. He had eyes. So when Eddie started moving around Harlem, Bumpy heard about it before Eddie ever touched his face. A bar porter mentioned the same white overcoat showing up night after night. A cab driver mentioned Eddie asking too many questions about who handled what blocks. A numbers runner mentioned Eddie trying to recruit local boys with fast cash and faster promises. Bumpy saw the pattern. Eddie wasn't hunting Bumpy with a gun. He was hunting his authority. And the slap was the moment Eddie thought he'd won. But Bumpy had already decided something that night. Something Harlem legends still repeat because it sounds like a warning carved into stone. If you let disrespect live, it multiplies. So Bumpy didn't respond in the lounge. He responded where it would echo. At 11:18 p.m., Bumpy stepped into a small backroom barbershop on Lenox, the kind that stayed open late because information didn't punch out. He didn't give a speech. He didn't explain. He gave 3 names. Then one instruction. "Find me his money," Bumpy said. "Find me his men. Find me where he feels safe." A man asked, careful, "Boss? You want him dead?" Bumpy's eyes stayed flat. "I want him remembered," he said. "Dead men get forgotten. Lessons don't." Outside, Harlem kept dancing and drinking like nothing happened. But underneath the music, the neighborhood had shifted. Because the 50 minutes were running. 11:24 p.m. Eddie Caruso left the lounge smiling, telling himself Bumpy had backed down. He climbed into a car and headed toward a stash spot he'd been using near 132nd, an apartment above a closed tailor shop where he kept cash, liquor, and a few men who didn't ask questions. He didn't know that the moment he stepped outside, Harlem started tracking him like a scent. Not with radios. Not with flashing lights. With looks. A doorman watched him pass and nodded once to a man across the street. A street kid saw the car's license plate and ran it to a corner where somebody always knew who to tell. A bartender who owed Bumpy his rent money made a quiet phone call from a back room. By 11:33 p.m., Bumpy had Eddie's route mapped out without leaving Harlem. And Bumpy made sure of one thing before anything else. Nobody innocent was going to be inside when the message landed. 11:36 p.m. Two women who worked near Eddie's stash spot were approached by a calm man in a hat. No threats. No violence. Just a sentence. "You got 5 minutes?" he said. "If you value your lungs." They left. A delivery boy was handed $1 and told, "Don't go upstairs tonight." He didn't ask why. He ran. 11:41 p.m. Bumpy stood inside a parked car 2 blocks away, watching the tailor shop's dark windows. His face was still. Junie, one of his trusted men even back then, leaned in from the front seat. "We got confirmation," Junie said. "Eddie's inside. 3 men with him. Cash bag. 2 pistols." Bumpy nodded once. "Any civilians?" he asked. "Cleared," Junie said. "Like you said." Bumpy's jaw tightened. That right there was the difference between chaos and control. Between a gangster and a king. He could be violent, but he refused to be sloppy. 11:48 p.m. A second car pulled up quietly behind them. Another man leaned into Bumpy's window. "Boss," he said, "Eddie's driver is downstairs smoking. Alone." Bumpy stared through the windshield. "Bring him," Bumpy said. 2 minutes later, Eddie's driver was yanked into the alley behind the tailor shop, shoved against brick, and suddenly sober. He expected a beating. He got a question. "Where's the back stairwell?" Bumpy asked. The driver's lips trembled. I don't know what you..." Bumpy lifted his hand slightly, showing the driver the small cut on his mouth from the slap. "You know what?" Bumpy said quietly. The driver's eyes widened. "Back door. Left side. It sticks. You gotta lift it." Bumpy nodded. Then he gave the driver the cruelest gift in Harlem, a chance to live with the memory. "Go home," Bumpy said. "And don't ever drive into Harlem again unless you want to die here." The driver ran like the devil had grabbed his ankle. 11:55 p.m. Bumpy moved. Not a stampede. Not a riot. 5 men. Quiet steps. Close. No talking. They didn't kick the front door. They used the back. The door stuck just like the driver said. Junie lifted it. It opened with a soft groan. They went up. 2nd floor. Eddie Caruso was laughing inside, pouring himself a drink like he'd earned it. "That's how you handle a loudmouth," Eddie said to his men. "You touch him, he disappears." One of his men hesitated. "Boss, Harlem don't disappear like that." Eddie smirked. "Harlem disappears when money talks." Then a new sound entered the room, soft, steady footsteps coming up the back stairs. Eddie turned and saw Bumpy Johnson in the doorway. No rush. No anger on his face. Just certainty. Eddie's grin twitched. "You got nerve showing up." Bumpy cut him off with one sentence. "Time's up." Eddie reached for his pistol. He didn't get it. Junie hit his wrist hard. The gun clattered away. Eddie stumbled back, shocked. His men stood up too late, confused, half drunk, half panicked. Bumpy didn't shoot. He didn't need to. He stepped closer, eyes on Eddie like Eddie was something he'd already decided the ending for. "You slapped me in front of Harlem," Bumpy said. "So now Harlem watches you lose." Eddie spit blood from his split lip. "You gonna kill me?" Bumpy shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "I'm gonna erase what made you brave." Bumpy looked past Eddie, toward the open cash bag on the table. "Take it," Bumpy told his men. "All of it." Eddie's eyes widened. "That's mine." Bumpy leaned in, voice low, almost educational. "That money was never yours," he said. "It was borrowed from fear." Then Bumpy turned and walked out like the conversation was finished. Eddie lunged after him, rage, humiliation, desperation. But his feet stopped when he smelled it. Gasoline. Not poured wildly. Not everywhere. Just enough. A controlled burn. Eddie's voice cracked. "You crazy, this whole block." Bumpy didn't turn around. He just said, "Should have used your 50 minutes to pray." And then the fire caught. Hungry. The tailor shop downstairs flashed bright in the windows like the building had turned into a lantern. Smoke rolled into the street. People shouted. Doors opened. Feet ran. It wasn't the whole of Harlem burning. It was Harlem watching something burn that mattered. Eddie Caruso's illusion of power. From the sidewalk, Bumpy stood still and watched the flames climb. Sirens started somewhere far away, like the city needed time to accept what just happened. Eddie stumbled out behind him, coughing, eyes wet, suit ruined, pride collapsing. He didn't kneel. He didn't have to. His face said the same thing. Bumpy looked at him once. "Next time you want to touch me," Bumpy said, "bring a coffin you already paid for." Then he walked into the night, leaving Eddie in the glow of his own mistake. By sunrise, Harlem had already turned the story into law. Not written law. Street law. They said Eddie Caruso slapped Bumpy at 11:12. They said by midnight, Eddie's money was gone and his safe place was smoke. Some people claimed it was 2 buildings. Some said it was just the stash spot. Harlem stories always grow teeth as they travel. But the lesson stayed sharp. Disrespect isn't personal in Harlem. It's contagious. And Bumpy treated it like disease, fast, brutal, controlled. Eddie didn't die that night. Not immediately. That was the point. A dead man disappears. A living warning limps through the neighborhood forever. For weeks, people spotted Eddie downtown, quieter, smaller, no longer walking like a king. And every time somebody asked him what happened up in Harlem, he'd look away. Because how do you admit you learned a rule the hard way? How do you admit Harlem didn't just hurt you? Harlem educated you. If this story hit you, hit the like button. Subscribe for more Harlem underworld stories told like this, cinematic, tense, and built from the kind of legends that never make it into textbooks. And drop a comment. If you were Bumpy in 1937, do you let the slap slide, or do you make sure the whole city smells the consequences?